Wow, wow, appreciate that so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Such a wonderful presentation. Just outstanding, Dupre and Barry. Appreciate. Um, I had the experience of being in the company of Nina Simone, and I had asked her, would she sang that? I think you outdid her, and I don't give, I don't give that credit to just anybody. I know it's Billie Holiday soon, but I had, I, she, she did a wonderful job. I thank you, I thank you very much. Okay, now I can brag if I want to. I will just say that we are privileged to have our special person here today. Her name is TJ Wilson, happened to be my daughter. And TJ stands for terrific joy, terrific joy. I have another daughter, and her name is MJ Wilson, marvelous joy. Anyway, I'd just like to, you in the program, you're able to read just what she does and what she has done. I'd just like to mention something that she'll probably kill me for. When she was in sixth grade, she wrote, directed, and starred in her one-woman show, did an outstanding job. And I know that I'll hear about it later. You can read in our program about TJ and her studies. She should be receiving her, let me see what it's called. A BFA? Okay, I was going to say MFA because I'm not, each time I'm trying to contact her, especially when school is in session, it's like trying to contact Obama or somebody. So I will now give you TJ Wilson with such pride. Thank you.
That's my mommy. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I want to thank you for being here and allowing me to speak with you about this particularly moving subject matter. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not speaking loud enough. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, great. I want to thank you. Today, I'm a little nervous because this is so important to me, but I really want it to share a moving moment in our history, given where we are today. Okay, so again, my name is TJ Wilson, and I selected this topic. Okay, thank you. I selected this topic of the imaging of Emmett Hill for Emmett Till. I'm sorry, I'm so I'm so yeah, Emmett Till, because it's such a poignant moment in time today, and I wonder if the ancestors thought we would be here again in this fashion. And also, as a protectant of our history, our living history, be it artistic, political, social, it's necessary for us not to forget and forget the turning points as Black people in our moments here in the United States and North America. So can we start the slideshow? with the first slide. So the imaging of Emmett Till from the covers of Jet magazine to the visual representation and painting, it's a historical moment in the time of the United States. And the question that I pondered when I saw a particular painting was, is this historic immortalization of this Black figure, should it be a shared experience? Or is it just something that we as Black people, in particular here in America, keep and hold precious? I was introduced to a painting when I started school, went back to school in 2021. The painting was entitled Open Casket. And I had such a reaction to it, such a reaction. It was the depiction of Emmett Till in his open casket. The artist was a white woman named Dana Schutz. And I would revisit this particular painting in school at least 3 times. We would have discussed it. And each time we discussed it, I felt the same way. So I want to set the tone. I want you to imagine, I'm going to take you back. I wasn't there, but I'm still going to take you back. So, like so many parents, Black parents, in the early 1900s, probably till today, Mamie and Louis Till put their 14-year-old son on a bus in Chicago to visit their parents, their family in Sumner, Mississippi. That would be the sign that would greet him as he approached that city. Sumner, a good place to raise a boy. Louis and Mamie represented a large population of African Americans that moved from the South. They might part of that large migration, the big migration, the Black migration of the early 40s and 50s from the South to the North. Part of that transition, that transformation, is that you still don't lose touch with your families. Even though you're in Chicago, Michigan, New York, you still send your kids back home because they're safe there too. And even with it being that moment in time, that Jim Crow era, you still feel that your child will be safe in the arms and the bosom of their family. You can move on, please, the next slide. So Emmett Till made that 600+ mile journey to visit his family in the summer of 1955, August 1955. And he may have stood out a little bit. He was born in Chicago, so he probably had a little dapper to him, a little northern, little whatever, But even with that, our children were raised to know where they needed to be and how they needed to act, because that color line was serious business. His mannerisms may have been northern, but Mama and Papa sent him down south, and I guarantee you, they schooled him on how to behave. Next to the next slide, please. Thank you. So with his cousins, Emmett and his cousins visited a supermarket. Next slide. And encountered this cashier. According to the cashier, whose name was Carolyn Bryant Donham, a white 20-year-old woman, Emmett Till got fresh with her. Now the stories vary. He wolf whistled, he flirted, whatever happened, she decided to go home and tell her husband that a young black boy got fresh with her. And her husband told his half-brother, the husband being Roy Bryant, and his half-brother, J.W. Malam. They decided that they would kidnap in broad daylight Emmett Till. And not only would they kidnap him, they would kill him. They massacred that 14-year-old boy. Next slide, please. After they massacred him, this is the Tallahatchie River in Mississippi. That's where they dumped his body. That's where they located him, and that's where they found him. Next slide, please. And the Tallahatchie River is to show the historical significance of that moment. The town of Sumner, Mississippi decided to have signage placed there. And often that signage is riddled with bullets. Often that signage is used by folks to demonstrate their allegiance with, I guess, with what happened. And that picture that I placed in the slide came from 2018. And these are college students at Old Mississippi. They decided that they were going to use this picture as a badge of honor. So we're going to fast forward. We're going to go to after the discovery, Emmett Till's mother demanded that he come back, that she get to bury her child in Chicago. So the funeral, next slide, please. She let his face, his body be displayed. He was bludgeoned, beat to a pulp, shot in the head, hung, and then when they threw his body in the river, they attached an industrial fan, a circular, we're not sure if it was a fan or a tire rim, but it was industrial sized. Next picture, please. And this is how he was displayed. And Mamie Till was determined that if I got to see my son like this, you, the public, need to see my son. As not only in defiance of the white leadership that did not want her to show her son this way, but to let us as Black people know what they were doing to our children in black and white. Okay, so this picture was distributed, published in Black media throughout the country, and particularly a very popular magazine, Jet magazine, featured this picture. And this galvanized a Black nation within the United States. and it would be part of the formalization of the civil rights movement. His body was mutilated, unrecognizable, but he's a 14-year-old child. What could a 14-year-old child say to a white woman that is 21 in a white supermarket surrounded by white people? What could he have said that would cause someone to do that to him? So now I fast forward to 2017. I'm in school in 2021, but the painting, please show the next slide, please. Painting by Dana Schutz. It's very emotional for me. This painting is put up, exhibited, included at the Whitney Biennial in 2017. She painted this in 2016. It was part of the Whitney Biennial in 2017. They were unsure of how it would be accepted, what the reception would be, so they kind of put it in a corner, but folks found it anyway. And it caused a hailstorm in the artistic community. Now, the Whitney already had its issues as a museum, and it was often referred to by Black artists as the Whitey because it would not feature Black artists up until, with any prevalence, up until as early as the 80s. So when this particular painting was exhibited, there was so much reaction to this. And one reaction that I want to share with you is from an author named, I want to make sure I say her name right, Aruna de Souza. Aruna de Souza wrote a book that included her reaction to the painting, and also she did a lot of research, and I will share that information, share this information so everyone in the audience can download it if they want to. Her book is entitled White Walling, Art, Race, Protest in 3 Acts. It was published in 2018. It's a small book, and the first chapter is about the open casket Whitney Biennial 2017, Act 1. The cultural earthquake triggered by Dana Schutz's Open Casket, a painting included in the 2017 Whitney Biennial, began as social media tremors in the days before the exhibition opened to the public on March 17, 2017. Artists, critics, curators, writers, and the art world adjacent, many but not all Black, many but not all millennial and Gen Z, began expressing discomfort, anger, disbelief that anyone thought it was okay to include this painting in this show. And at the same time, not long after, Dana Schutz would respond, this is part of her response, in a statement that was put out March 21st and posted as part of the revised wall label in the gallery on March 28th. She said the painting had been conceived August 2016, after a long, violent summer of mass shootings, rallies filled with hate speech, and an ever-escalating number of Black men being shot execution style by police, recorded with camera phones as witnesses. She began thinking about Emmett Till, another young Black man, the victim of another form of state-sanctioned violence, lynching. She says she doesn't know what it's like to be a black American a black in America, but she did know what it was to be, what it's like to be a mother. And Emmett was Mamie Till's only son. And she thought that the possibility of a painting is only, the possibility of painting it only after listening to interviews with Mamie Till. And I read the entire piece, and we discussed it ad nauseum in all, like 3 classes. And I wondered, why was my reaction so past visceral, protective? Why did I feel that this was an encroachment? Why did I feel that this should not be shared? Even though his image, it's not unique. We've seen his image, not so much the image of him in his casket, but we've seen the images of Emmett Till. And so why was I reacting the way I reacted? And I had to give that really a deep thought. And I participated in discussions, and I came away each time with the same position, that there are specific selective black imagery that should not be a part of the shared experience. The violated body of Emmett Till is one of them. And why? Because there's a connection, be it directly or indirectly, I felt, of this white woman that she participated, even though she had nothing to do with Emmett Till's murder, but I felt that she did, and I still feel very strongly about this. It's a violation of our son, that because many of us, Emmett Till is our child, and that we are protecting him, and that we want Mamie and Louis Till to be at peace, because they had not been at peace at all during the time of their lives and after the death of their son. So once again, I felt that the violation was happening once again through that painting, that propping him up for display in his most vulnerable, violated, molested state was not appropriate, not humanistic, not ethical. And I think I would have felt a little differently if she'd depicted his image before he'd been massacred. That smiling image of him is a tribute. But I still wouldn't have been happy about it. But I think it would have been a little bit more digestible to me. And honestly, based on her representation and her decision to paint Emmett Till, I don't see it as a tribute or a connection, because the intent, the original intent, was to eventually sell it. Wasn't to give it to a museum. It wasn't to give it to the Emmett Till Museum, because that does exist, but to sell it. And so to keep the peace, she promised, Dana Schutz promised, that she would not sell the painting. And I looked at her work before I decided to speak not at this engagement, but in class. I looked at her work because I'm like saying, okay, maybe this is something common for her. This is something that she did all the time. This is something very familiar. No, this is not her style. This is away from the departure from her medium. This is a departure from her style, her technique. And so I know that artists change, and artists change their mediums, they change their subject matters, they change their techniques, but I'm not buying that for Dana Schutz. I feel a personal indignation, and I want to say hands off. And now, because I feel that there's a mauling of Emmett Till once again. Can I have the next slide, please? So there's a thing about agency. There's a thing about the white gaze upon the black flesh. We know from history that it's not uncommon that we are made spectacles of. In this particular slide, this is called Hottentot Venus. The woman there, in this particular photo, her name was Sarah Bartman. That was not her African name, but that's the name that she was given. She was plucked up from her tribe in Kamodibo, South Africa. She was a Khoikhoi woman. And part of that, the physical attributes of the Khoikhoi women are that they are extremely bosomy, and they have wide hips. And when this particular woman was come upon in Africa, the European came upon her, I won't mention the name, that her features, her attributes were an exaggeration. They were, would be an attraction to the folks throughout Europe and possibly North America. And so they put her in something like a freak show, and they paraded her around, and they looked at her like a freak, but there was also a sexual attribute, sexual objectivity. She's used as a sexual object also. And this is what happens. I put this slide in because this is a part of the black imaging that happens and becomes distorted. And it won't be the first time. Next slide, please. Al Jolson, he made a living of being in blackface. Now, blackface did not start with Al Jolson, it did not end with Al Jolson. If we think about William Shakespeare's Othello in medieval England, the actor that played Othello used blackface. And that's one of the first times on record that we know that blackface existed in medieval Europe. The history of the caricature, the satirization, and the mocking of the black facial feature is another way of distorting as black people, distorting how we see each other, a way of controlling, subjugating us. And it continues to this day. Maybe not in this way, but in other ways. Next slide, please. And this image, now images like this were not uncommon in the right during the World War I, where pictorial magazines became very popular in North America. And it's not uncommon to see a black image, an exaggerated, satirized black image, a caricature of black images in those types of magazines. And these types of images, they would use props like watermelon to exaggerate, to manipulate how we as black people were seen. And I show you those slides because it's what I feel is the white gaze. And now I'm going to show you what happens when we have black agency over how we are seen. Next slide, please. These are the depictions of Emmett Till visually by black artists. Not, and again, I'm not saying that we haven't depicted it, but I feel that there is a proprietorship that we are entitled to. And it's not very common. You don't see it a lot. Most of the times you see his face as he was before the massacre, but this is what we have put out there. Next slide, please. And again, agency. Of our Black bodies, the first picture to your right, or is it your left? Your left, my right, is a painting by Charles White. This painting is called Our Land, and it's a depiction of a robust Black woman, but an empowered Black woman. And I don't have to say much more about it. Just, this is what Black agency does. Paul Robeson, when we want to see our Black facial, character, facial features, we want to see them acted out. This man was in the, I want to say, 1920s, 30s, popular both in the Black community and the white community. And he did not play as a minstrel. He did not play a Amos and Andy. He played Othello. He sung in front of a president, a master. And then we have the watermelon depicted by a Black artist named Charles Ethan Porter. The elevation of and he was intentional with his depiction, the still life. He elevated the fruit. Because not just Black people ate watermelon. And before it became a vehicle of satirization or to mimic or to make Black folks feel some kind of way, in Europe, this was a fruit that it was unique and they couldn't get to it fast enough and they couldn't eat enough of it. So I want to say that I want to end with this depiction of Black agency. And, want to mention also that this particular still life is still around, and it's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in Gallery 766, along with other still lifes from Ethan Porter, from Charles Ethan Porter, from the 1890s. Anyway, so I want to close with this. I want to think about, I want you to think about what it means to have a shared experience and why we need to be careful as people that everything that we think belongs to the world doesn't always belong to the world. That there are moments in history that are galvanizing, unique, emotional, angry, and especially our history here in America and the United States, that we don't have a lot of, we still don't have a lot of control, but we do have a lot of control. That we don't always open our mouths and we don't always feel empowered, but we do have a lot of power, especially given today. And that's not just for Black people, that's for white people too. And I'm going to end with this, that John Acosta, a CNN commentator, a news journalist, didn't give in to tyranny. He quit on air I think it was Tuesday, and he said, don't give in to tyranny. And part of not giving in to tyranny is also learning about your history. And your history is not just European history or Western history. It is also Black history. Just like I had to learn it, I think everybody else should too. And that's all I got to say. Thank you. Ooh.
I can use this one? I would like to thank you very much. And we can take a few questions. Not many, but a few.
Okay. All right. Yes, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Allison. Thank you so much for this presentation and for your work. I thought this was just really fabulous, and I appreciate your scholarship. Was recently visiting the Museum of African American History and Culture in DC, and they have the casket that Emmett Till was buried in, and I was really surprised. Oh, yeah, sorry. I was really surprised that they had like a docent in there who was very, very protective. And every time somebody would kind of like lean toward the casket or even like standing on their toes to sort of look in, somebody was saying no. And I that was surprising to me, but I'm curious if in your research and your work, have you found that the Till family is, or the estate is still really invested in or kind of sensitive to, I guess, still like how people literally see his legacy?
I will say that there's an Emmett Till Museum in, I want to say Mississippi. I'll send that information so everyone will know. But yes, but it's not just Emmett Till's family, it's his extended family. I would say anyone that has a Black son, a Black husband, a Black father, a Black nephew, a Black male. Not saying it doesn't apply to women, but in particularly that there's a feeling of proprietorship, like hands off. So we are all invested. Many of us are still invested. Even that town in Mississippi, Sumner, I think that, and I want to say they renamed the town too. And there are people in that town that were active in there was a recent film of Emmett Till, and they participated, and they weren't just Black people that felt some kind of way, not just, and even during that time, the sheriff of Sumner, Mississippi, stated how he was receiving letters from all types of people, not just in the United States. The reaction to the killing, the massacre of Emmett Till resonated throughout the world. And this is especially because it's at the precipice of when you're starting to see images. And that's the important, just how we are seeing things happening on our phones. Think about that in print. You go from not seeing anything or limited amounts of information, and then you're moving towards the printed image, and it's going everywhere. So you can't hide anymore.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, yes. It's important. That's beautiful, beautiful research scholarship, and really emphasizing the co-opting of Black culture, and somehow to legitimize crime or, you know, the way society operates. I think it's also important to mention what happened to his accusers.
Nothing.
The coda.
Right.
Yes, it is. It should be on record. A lot of people here may not know what happened.
Nothing happened to them.
Yeah, so.
And they were they confessed. They bragged about what they did to, and I'm glad you reminded me of that. They bragged about what they did. And that there were men on the jury that acquitted them, that participated in the killing of Emmett Till also.
I think a couple of things. First of all, I think it was an excellent presentation, and thank you so much. I think number two, that the killing of Emmett Till was not unusual. That is something that is hard to wrap your head around. But Mississippi had a history of this. And so when Emmett's mother said, I want you to see this, she is saying, I am not going to let you hide this anymore. And that was the awakening. Number three is that Carol lied. She said on her deathbed, Emmett Till didn't say anything. She was starting some stuff, and it got started and she couldn't stop it, or she didn't want to stop it, or she couldn't stop it. Number four, how men see themselves, and particularly how European men see themselves, is pivotal to how we see ourselves. It is pivotal to the institution of slavery and in the post-slavery situation. And it was important for men to strut their stuff. And part of strutting their stuff in a Mississippi town is, what have you done lately? Well, this is what I've done. What have you done? So I'm trying to say that all of these things pivot on each other. They're not isolated incidents. And now we have, in a place that shall go nameless, we have a reincarnation of that same mentality. And for one, I'm not going to be quiet about it, because I know what happens when people stand by and say, well, I'm not going to get involved. We've had World War II, we've had the Holocaust, we've had everything since then, we've had everything in front of them, and I'm glad to see that there is a growing group of people of all races, of all colors, and of all economic stripes who are not going to stand by and watch this thing happen all over again. I finish.
She raised me well.
Yeah. Oh, can I just take 1 second on this, actually? Because you know what's very interesting, TJ, is this conversation, I think, about blacks and whites. So what do progressive whites be? I'm not saying that particularly that this painter was a self-identified progressive white. Actually, I just had this image of what if she, in this painting, had put the white woman in that casket with Emmett Till. Imagine if, would that have made the story? But it does to me, in all honesty, as a somewhat sort of self-identified progressive and white person that wants to love. Can I say love? With as much pain as my race has. But I really want to be able to say, you're my friends, I love you, what can I do? But on the other hand, I can also say, well, you know, the white people, we want to make it seem like we're doing, aren't we being nice? Oh, aren't you being so liberal?
Thank you, Vondra.
And so I'm sorry,
Thank
I didn't
you.
mean to take that for myself, but
Thank
I
you.
wanted us to speak to the moment, how we've got to work together.
Thank you, thank you. This is a,
They're intertwined. I mean, white people went down to Selma, Alabama, and white people gave their lives for the movement. So it's just a humanist approach. We're all human beings.
we are all
Are we
human beings,
good
and
human
thank you.
beings,
Thank
or
you
we're
very
not
much.
good?
We
So our
must
histories are
move.
intertwined.
It's an extraordinary person to stand up in the middle of an oppressive situation and say, I'm not going to participate. More than that, I'm not going to let you. Okay? And there, throughout our history, Lucy's history, you all have missed a lot that we have tried to produce here. Because Lucy's Children has given you a wealth of information. We have talked
Absolutely.
about white judges who have stood to the side and said, not happening here, okay? White women who have stood up and said, not happening here, and I'm talking deep South, okay? And you didn't come. Now I'm getting old and I'm getting tired, okay?
Okay, thank you,
But we're
thank
going
you,
to
thank
start
you.
doing some
Thank
other
you.
things because I think we need to look at the anatomy of racism. We need to understand what the word means. We need to open it, okay, and
Thank
look
you,
at
Muriel,
it.
thank
Because
you.
people who are talking about Donald Trump now, all of that was something code, those were all code words for racism. Whatever he was saying, it didn't even matter. It was nonsensical, it was crazy, okay? I'm
Okay,
from the
but can-
terror to the attack to the, I'm gonna
I-
stop in a minute, but let me just say this.
Well, please.
Let me just say this. People have stopped learning how to analyze what is being thrown at them. We are so bombarded with information that we just take it at face value. We cannot afford to do that, and I finish.
Thank you, everyone. This is a big conversation, and we're stretched for time here at the moment. We have another selection. We can talk about when we can reconvene and even pick up this topic. It seems to be fiery for us, and we're bubbling with information. It's just that we have a time frame here.
On the 16th, I'm giving a presentation.
So come back, every one of you, on the 16th of February. Thank you. One more song, yes. So you ready? Thank you.
Streaming on YouTube. There's a YouTube on Muriel. Oh, you Google it. I'm scared. No, it's amazing.
Say again? I'm like, what? Say anything. I'm just trying to be free so that I can move around with this. Okay. Okay.
You need to unwrap it again.
Can I just say one thing really fast right here?
Yes, go ahead, Mario.
We just finished recognizing Holocaust Remembrance Day. That was on the 27th. I am talking now to someone whose mother was a Holocaust survivor. What I have said and what is going to be reiterated is that Hitler read about how Black people were being treated in the United States in order to make a determination about how they were going to treat the Jews in Germany. People act like, they're in these isolated situations. This stuff boomerangs all around. And we're going to look at that, and we're going to talk about that, and we're going to open talking about World War II, because we're still fighting the same war. It's the same war.
And now it's the immigrants.
Okay.